Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me this week are Jeff Franke and Anna Wells. We each have more than 15 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Every week, we take the 5 most popular stories and discuss the implications they have on the industry going forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. We're also live every Friday at about 1:30. Oh, wait, it's Thursday, though. Still 1:30. So if you subscribe on YouTube at IEN Magazine, you'll get a notification at least 2 minutes before we go live. Anna, how you doing this week?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Yeah?
It's good to be back. Feeling good. I thought Andy did a really good job last week, though.
Yeah, it's great. Nice to have Andy on board. Good to have you back, though.
Yeah, thanks. Jeff, how you doing?
Very well. We are on a roll.
Yeah.
Between softball last Wednesday through today. So we got to keep it going here. The podcast counts. We got to crush this just like our softball games.
Well, talking about the podcast, our office, we're shut down next week. We shut down for the 4th every year. And so as a result, we're not going to have as much content posted to the websites throughout the week. So it might be a little bit harder to chop up what our top 5 stories are that week. So I was thinking that maybe we send it to the viewers and listeners a little bit, see if they had any particular questions that they would like us to answer, or any story recommendations, things that they saw either from next week or from the industry that they'd like us to discuss. What do you guys think of that idea?
Yeah,
awesome.
I like it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Now we just need at least one person to send something.
I know. And Jeff, I should say, if the plan is to crush the podcast, you need to tell us in advance. I just came here to regular do the podcast. I wasn't.
That's the problem with Anna.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah.
I always come to play. Way to bat 7th on the podcast.
I need to be told to give 110%. Normally, I'm giving 100.
Right? We are about a day left into a week off, so we know where we're at.
We do.
All right. Well, before we get started, we have a word from our sponsor.
Oil Eater's household cleaners, industrial cleaners, and industrial equipment are specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents and are used throughout the world. Our safe water-based formula dissolves grease and grime for almost any surface and leaves a fresh, non-chemical scent. Our ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used on shop floors, in parts washers, to clean equipment, and more. VOC compliant, Oil Eater will do an excellent job in a multitude of applications, safely and cost effectively, while reducing your chemical usage. Safe for the user, safe for the surfaces being cleaned, and safe for the environment. For more information, visit oileater.com or call 800-528-0334.
Right, and we're back. Our first story this week, we'll tell you in a second, right after we tell you about that link just below in the description to click for a free sample of Oil Eater. All right, now, our first story this week. Tesla lays off 200 Autopilot employees. Tesla is closing an office in San Mateo, California, and cutting some 200 Autopilot jobs in the process. The employees labeled videos captured by cameras and sensors mounted to the vehicles. It sounds like it was common knowledge that Tesla's lease on the office building was ending, but employees were shocked to find that they were laid off instead of being relocated. According to leaked audio from a meeting with management, Tesla tried to keep the team as it was, moving Autopilot employees to Palo Alto. The employees' last day was this week, but at least they're going to be paid the next 60 days. Anna, one thing I'm surprised about with Tesla is how no matter what the meeting, there's always leaked audio, emails, memos. It is just, I don't know who has the line into Bloomberg.
Yeah.
But it's just, I feel like all of a sudden something happens at Tesla and they're just bombarded with internal documents.
Yeah, there's a lot of sources over there. Some moles hiding in the walls. I think it's clear that Elon Musk is spooked about the economy. And what the current economic conditions might portend, because he said so much in recent weeks about how he is planning layoffs. In this case, I think it's hard to tell what's going on. Tesla's moving that self-driving group, as you mentioned, to another location, so perhaps there's some sort of redundancy issue in play. We don't really know about that. But I think one other possibility is that Tesla might see the writing on the wall from the NHTSA, who's actually considering so we know that NHTSA or NHTSA is probing Tesla right now about its self-driving cars, right? We just saw an AP story break today where they interviewed NHTSA's new CEO, who called out self-driving specifically and said that the agency was going to intensify its efforts to understand the risks posed by automated vehicle technology so it can decide what regulations may be necessary to protect drivers, passengers, and pedestrians. So I think it's possible that Tesla is maybe slowing down a little bit on self-driving only because Musk is so publicly pulling back. Yeah. I think he might have some other problems that he needs to deal with first. We know that there's a lot of supply chain issues. Anecdotally, there's been reports of challenges from their production and inability to maintain the pace that they have established so far this year. I think also, as it relates to self-driving, since there are no federal regulations around that at this time, maybe those are being anticipated based on NHTSA's recent comments. And maybe that potential coupled with these other challenges that Tesla's facing means putting some of this development on the back burner for now. Yeah. This is pure speculation on my part, but it just, the move didn't seem like something that was part of long-term strategy. If these employees were so shocked, it felt like maybe it was a response to something timely, and that's my best guess.
See, I was speculating on the other end, where it seems like the move was already planned. Maybe it just logistically didn't work out to bring the employees. It didn't seem to me like they were pulling back, or it had anything to do with the autopilot problems, or his, predictions about cutting 10% of the workforce, about his super bad feeling.
Super bad.
Yeah, about the economy. It just seemed like this was what maybe turned out to be either a last-minute decision or something they didn't really want to tell them from the outset. But that was just my speculation.
Right.
Jeff, what's your speculation on it?
I agree more with Anna's speculation than your speculation. I think they basically saw an opportunity here. You already foreshadowed the fact that they were going to be making cuts. Yeah. This is an area that they're getting more negative headlines about than positive. I don't think it's really turned out to be the sales push or the hot button item that was going to stimulate more sales activity, as maybe Elon Musk thought it would. So I think it's an opportunity to do that. I also think he's starting to look more internally at his operation and try to figure out ways that he is going to need to stay competitive in the short term. According to a report by Bloomberg, by 2024, they're predicting Volkswagen to be the #1 EV seller in the world. Okay, right now, even though Tesla doesn't break things down by country in terms of sales, it's projected that the U.S. is about 40% of their total sales. Well, Volkswagen's going to grow in China and Europe, two areas where right now they have a chance to get ahead of Tesla. So I think Elon Musk is probably looking at, okay, we've got everybody else who's going to be jumping on this EV ship here to start pushing things forward. I've got to do something to get our house in order and get our priorities more aligned. We've already covered some of the production issues. They've run into different things in China. They've run into different things in Germany. They just started the new plant in Texas. They're going to eventually run into some of these same supply chain issues that all the other automakers do if they get to that type of scale where they're more competitive. So I think this is more of I think it was a tough business decision that he had to make. You do feel bad for all these folks because it was kind of a knee-jerk thing to them. Like, they were all legitimately surprised that it was this sort of scale in terms of the layoff. The other thing I think we have to look at when it comes to a lot of the things that did influence people to buy EVs in the past versus now, is those federal tax incentives are gone for Tesla. They have expired. So when you look, if Volkswagen is indeed their #1 competitor on the EV side, right now, if you're buying an electric Volkswagen, an all-electric, that $7,500 credit, it's still there. That's a big deal.
It is, yep.
No, see, I think that he's still invested in Autopilot because also if you looked at some of the things that these employees were doing, it kind of seemed like they were the employees like on the other end of Siri or your Amazon Echo, right? Where like when Amazon, when Alexa doesn't understand what you're saying, they're the ones that like quickly try and figure out what you need. Because these were people that were just kind of looking at the cameras, looking for things that were overlapping. It seemed more like not a mission critical job.
Kind of refining the algorithm a little bit.
So So I think that while they might still be invested in Tesla, maybe this is, like you said, some spending that they could kind of cut out reasonably. And about your point about the workers, I also wanted to mention that as well, because, the workers were told to immediately leave their laptops and badges and to check their emails for severance and benefits information. And, while it sucks, it happens, and it happens all the time. And it's just a reminder that everyone is replaceable, and it's a brutal, brutal truth. Like, it is.
Damn. All right.
No, it is. It was like, I was, we've had friends, or and some of us have been through this exact situation where it's just like, you show up one day, and they're like, hey, meeting in 15 minutes. Great. Leave all your stuff and go. Leave a Post-it note on the door saying we're not paying the lease. And it is like, it reminded me of this one time I was negotiating with the former boss, and I was just like, this company says they're going to pay me this much. And the other boss just said, everyone's replaceable, David. I'm like, that's how you counter? So, just a reminder.
Don't read between the lines too much there, bud.
Brutal, brutal truth. And just wanted to talk about the workers a little bit more, because either way, that just sucks. And even though they're getting 60 days of pay and everything, and it is a competitive job market, it's still a huge disruption to their lives.
For sure.
It sucks.
Agreed. The one silver lining I would say is if you want to be in product development, having Tesla on your resume, you're in pretty good shape, I think.
That's okay. So one more thing about Tesla is, so when we're talking about all these cameras and phones and leaked emails, is that it sounds like everyone wants to work at Tesla and SpaceX, and it's so competitive, and all the engineers want to go there. If it's so great, why are all the employees just chomping at the bit to sell intel to the media? Just like, it's great, but it's also maybe terrible.
But it's not all. I mean, they're big companies, so you're going to get those.
GM's a big company. So is Boeing. We don't see this with any of those companies.
I think it's so much easier, though.
Yeah.
When you look at it, these are, I would say, on average, probably younger engineers that they are hiring here at Tesla.
Yeah.
Social media is a bigger part of their day-to-day. When something happens, it's out there and it's easy to consume. One of these reporters reaches out, and could just be a simple respond, tweeting back at them, direct message them, whatever, and they reply to it.
I don't know. I think it's the same at every other company, but it happens at Tesla all the time. I mean, just from the way it looks.
But GM, a lot of those workers are unionized. Like, this would never happen there.
Gotcha.
It's not that they wouldn't get laid off, but they would have some advance notice. There would be negotiations, stuff like that.
Okay.
So I don't know.
So you're right. Maybe that's an additional layer of protection.
Sure.
Okay. It just seems odd to me that we don't see it from many other companies, especially major automakers. All right. Our next most popular story. Regulators say Phillips 66 unlawfully processed renewable fuel. Phillips 66 has been accused of improperly processing renewable diesel. According to Reuters, regulators with California's Bay Area Air Quality Management District, or the commonly known BAAQMD, say Phillips 66 committed the act at a refinery in Rodeo, California. Not rodeo. It is Rodeo, California.
Attaboy.
Yep. Definitely went through that one earlier.
You got there.
Last year, the refinery began processing small volumes of soybean oil. However, the company didn't alter an air permit that allows for the same type of processing with petroleum feedstocks. Phillips 66 disagreed with the allegation and claims to have submitted an air permit modification request with the very popular BAAQMD. Jeff, your thoughts on the situation between Phillips 66 and the BAAQMD?
We love the government acronyms. Fantastic. You always know it's going to be a good story then. Yeah, I think Phillips got caught. It seems like they probably did do something wrong from a paperwork perspective here. They definitely made a mistake. They're getting hammered because they already had some people who were working against them on the environmental side. That's never going to go away. What's interesting is when you look at the product here, this soybean oil, which I really had no working knowledge of until we knew we were going to be talking about it here. If you look at the price of this stuff, start of 2019, it was going for 28 cents a pound. This year, at the beginning of this year, it was up to 56 cents a pound.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's a huge increase, and it's even hit a high of as much as 88 cents a pound.
Oh,
so the price of this product has gone way up.
Yeah.
So you can appreciate why there may be a rush for Phillips to start working at this stuff. I don't know if they were refining it separately or if they're using it as like a feedstock for biodiesel or whatever. But whatever they had, they're probably looking to use it as soon as they could to take advantage of potential market factors. There's a lot of things going on in Brazil, I guess, some flooding that has really impacted the harvest of soybeans that are going to be used for the oil. So there are some market factors here. It doesn't cover up what Phillips did. They made a mistake. They should have gone this. I think their thinking was probably, hey, if it's good enough for petroleum refining, it should be fine for handling soybean oil, which, if you look at it from a pure emissions perspective, it should be. But there's a reason why we have these checks and balances in place. You got to let people know what you're doing and what you're putting into the air, because there needs to be sort of a historical record of it at a minimum, because we've learned our lessons about that in the past.
Agreed. So, Anna, the BAC MD regulates stationary sources of air pollution. What were your thoughts on how this situation was handled by both the regulators and Phillips 66?
So, I think initially you look at the headline and you read some of the details and you're like, this is overkill. Why do we have to probe this? This is an error, oversight, whatever. Phillips 66 has been investing in soy production, for the last few years. They bought a minority ownership of a plant in Iowa. They're trying to get into that market. So soybean oil is considered to be like a pretty sustainable, clean burning type fuel, and it has a lot of applications like in diesel related stuff, in jet fuel, stuff like that. But I think the situation is maybe a little bit more complicated than you see at first blush. Reuters said that Phillips 66 wants the Rodeo project to produce more than 800 million gallons of renewable diesel, renewable gasoline, and sustainable jet fuel annually. But that effort requires increased use of hydrogen, which can cause flaring events and refineries to malfunction, according to environmental rights groups. So 10 groups at least, including the National Resources Defense Council, have complained to California regulators about the additional emissions produced by using more hydrogen to treat feedstocks like soybean oil and animal tallow. These agencies believe emissions might actually increase at this plant because of this process. So again, it's complicated, right? This fuel will burn cleaner in the end, I think, than a fossil fuel, which probably qualifies it for the rebates and tax incentives that these companies are getting to transition. But the process may need a bit more oversight, to realize that net benefit in the end. And maybe Phillips 66 was trying to get around that. So I think it was easy looking at the headline to be like, come on, California, you're being crazy again with the regulations. But it's highly possible to me, looking at that situation, that Phillips 66 kind of knew what they were doing there, maybe.
The only reason I disagree with that is because the county approved Phillips' plans to convert the Bay Area refinery in early May.
Right, I know that they did.
Yeah, and so that's why I feel like it's just an oversight paperwork issue. And honestly, I think it's issues like this that kind of give people a bad impression of regulators and environmentalists, because, I don't know, because it doesn't, I understand, you want to make it a big deal up front so that way everything is fixed and nothing goes bad in the long run. But I just, I was reading the story and I'm like, this is what gives people a bad taste in the mouth, because it seems like, it looked like they were trying to do things right or maybe missed a step. And as a result,
I get that, but I think if it's any other industry, maybe you can be more passive about that.
Play the oops card.
It's petroleum. It's oil. This industry, this segment, these guys, even if it's not Phillips 66 specifically, they have such a horrible track record when it comes to safety and environmental regulations that you do have to catch them sooner.
Yeah.
Even though it may have been a simple mistake, they have to know they're going to get hammered. Yeah. They have to know that this is coming. This is just due diligence, and I think it also does open them up to greater scrutiny. Look, if you couldn't even just file the paperwork to say you got a different filter on here, what else is going on?
Well, and they did have some situations like flare-ups and malfunctions and stuff already.
Yeah.
So clearly there's been an impact from this, and I don't believe that they don't have the the team in place to manage this regulatory environment. I don't believe that they don't.
No, they do have the team. It comes down to like probably one really bad compliance officer that's in a lot of trouble right now. Like, he probably has the software in place where it has all the boxes that need to be checked green in order to proceed. And he left that red box. He's like, I'm pretty sure the BAAQMD aren't going to catch that.
Backworm did.
And why wouldn't Phillips just be like, my bad?
Yeah.
Here, check the box. Yeah. We got it. We're good.
Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, really? this product that we're putting out here just went up like 100% in price.
We'll pay the fine.
Yeah, we'll deal with this.
Well, maybe, they said that they submitted the air permit modification request. Maybe it got lost in the mail.
Maybe their dog ate it. Yeah.
Sticking up for big oil.
Who'd
have thought?
Somebody needs to do it.
Sometimes you have to take what big oil says and just take it for face value. I'm sure it's the truth.
Absolutely.
I'll help you with this. Moving on to our next story.
All right. Moving on to our next story.
Can we talk more about BAAQMD?
Absolutely. Manufacturers are struggling to keep pace with vinyl record demand. On October 1st, 1982, the first commercial compact disc, Billy Joel's 52nd Street, was released in Japan.
1982?
I know, that was surprisingly early.
Oh.
When compact discs came on the scene, they nearly killed the record album business. Vinyl pressing machines were sold, scrapped, and dismantled by major record labels. It has been 40 years, and now, with CDs fading into oblivion, vinyl record sales are experiencing double-digit annual growth. Manufacturers are rebuilding with dozens of new factories, but it's still not enough to keep pace with sales that reached $1 billion last year. Record album sales revenue grew 61% in 2021 and reached $1 billion for the first time since the 1980s. Oh, see? Because Billy Joel sunk them. When the resurgence happened, manufacturers had to start nearly from scratch. There are now 40 plants in the U.S. Most of them are smaller operations, but challenges remain. For example, backlogs are 6 to 8 months because of growing demand, and supply chain disruptions of raw materials, including vinyl polymers, have caused problems. Also, only a handful of companies, none in the U.S., make record pressing machines, which are also on back order. So, how does your vinyl collection stand right now, Anna?
It's not great. I have a few.
Yeah?
Yeah, I did enjoy this story because, it's like the nostalgia part of it is very interesting, and I grew up like listening to my parents' Led Zeppelin records and dancing around in my mom's high heels. But
that's awesome.
I enjoyed, there was a line in the story that I don't think you dropped in your intro, but it really got me thinking. It said, nostalgic baby boomers who missed thumbing through record albums in their local record stores helped to fuel a vinyl resurgence that started 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I have a very controversial take on this, but here goes. Mm-hmm. Let's rebuild all the blockbusters. Because I didn't know we could revive an entire dead industry just because of nostalgia for physical browsing.
Yeah.
Because I hate selecting content on my TV. Mm-hmm. Like, I have no attention span for that. I'm very unlikely to try something new or read the description or any of that.
Yep. Just put Friends on again.
Yeah, I know. That's exactly. I'm like, I guess The Office. Let's just, yeah. It's just, I miss the rental experience. I
agree.
I worked at a video store in high school, Hollywood Video.
Oh, yeah,
you
of course.
Remember? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I can still, smell it when I close my eyes, the candy, the box candy, and, the shrink wrap machine.
Yeah.
I want to go back there.
The plastic shell, how it clicked when you closed it.
I know, exactly.
So you even go back to VHS. You don't, I guess the DVD.
Yeah, they both clicked. Yeah, they both clicked. And, arguing with people about their fines. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I don't know, the story is very interesting to me, and it makes me think about, all the other products out there that could eventually have a resurgence based on people's nostalgia, although this is very rare.
What was crazy about this, though, was that it was nostalgia and baby boomers that propped it up for, 15 years, and then millennials came in and just grabbed onto it, like indie bands in particular, that wanted something cool at their merch tables, are the ones that then kind of took the torch from baby boomers.
Exactly, and I think like once something falls out of fashion for long enough, there's a resurgence with that younger crowd. So maybe like Blockbuster 2035. If anybody's, Jeff, you're shaking your head.
Never happened.
I don't think it'll happen either. But
I mean,
I am here for it if it does. It's just saying.
By 2035, there's probably going to be a lot of easily available retail space. So I mean, you might
That's true.
You could probably even get like some sort of non-profit Blockbuster going just for historical purposes.
That's true. Well, and like the other thing that was interesting about this story is they talked about Jack White, who was he's a solo artist now, but he was the singer in the White Stripes, and like I'm a huge fan of his. But he's a Detroit guy. He's from there, and he he started some record pressing companies in Detroit, and he sort of spearheaded this effort to try to plead with the industry to like rebuild itself, and he really did help with that. So you need to have a champion also, and so I don't know who that champion will be for the DVD rental business, but if you need someone, I will gladly take on that role.
How is going to a video store different than scrolling through your TV?
It's so different. It's so much different because it's like it's. Sorry, go ahead. Like
I'm with you.
It's taking the each case like you off the shelf, flipping it back, reading the back of it. It's walking. It's like
how's that better than watching a trailer?
It's a wholly different experience.
I'll give you that.
And it is honestly. When you're scrolling through like Netflix or any other streaming platform, it's just an annoyance. Like I
disagree.
Okay. I mean,
2 out of 3 though.
Yeah.
So
see, I wasn't
2 out of 3, and hundreds of millions of other people who'd never have gone to a bar.
No. But she's also like, I mean, to your point, Anna. So Jeff, vinyl seeing better growth in streaming. There are even reports that cassettes are coming back now too.
Ridiculous.
Yes.
And so, I mean, that Blockbuster.
Well,
it sounded better to you now, isn't it?
No.
Yeah.
Vinyl, actually, I think this is a little bit more of a slow burn. I mean, it definitely has taken off recently, but I can remember Pearl Jam. I think it was the Vitality album. That was like, it was like Eddie Vedder getting out there and really pushing vinyl. And I think that sort of helped preserve a little bit from everything going completely dark.
That was one of their worst albums, too.
Yeah,
it was not great.
Agreed. I don't know, you should listen to Earthling. Eddie Vedder's new one.
So kind of interesting that it has taken off. And I know this from personal experience. My daughter, that's what I got her for her birthday last year.
Oh, that's right.
It was a couple records.
When you were asking about what albums to get her, like, it was just like, you were just like, you lit a fuse in the office as to like what 2 albums, should you get?
Yep. With Nirvana.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's interesting and it is cool. I don't know about bringing back Blockbuster, but it's definitely cool to see some of these older technologies or ways of doing things that are perceived as better. I'm not an audiophile in any way, shape, or form, but everybody seems to say the sound on the record is better than anything digital or whatever. I think was it Neil Young who basically refused to kind of put some of his catalog out there on digital because he didn't like the way it sounded.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, a growing voice in terms of audio consumption or music consumption. What's also kind of interesting is in the article we talked about a place in Nashville that's putting on like a $15 million expansion to handle this increased demand. There's another place in Memphis that's actually doing $30 million expansion to handle all these records. And the thing that I thought was kind of cool is they're waiting on 34 of these presses to create the records that only come from, I think it's the UK. I think that's the only place that they're made.
Yeah.
So kind of interesting. Also, records actually have better margins than CDs, profitability-wise. So maybe for some of those smaller retailers that are still kind of hanging out here and there, it's kind of cool too.
I like it. A lot of it is ceremonial. It's taking the record out of the sleeve, putting it on the player, dropping the needle, and listening. Jeff, the same as you, I'm not an audiophile where I understand that it is a different listening experience, but it's not that much more rich for me to buy vinyl, But, don't get me wrong, I inherited a bunch of records, mostly that are old bluegrass from my grandpa, and I love sitting down listening to those. I got some of my mother's records, too. I actually have the 52nd Street as a record.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, not the CD. I probably got that, too. But,
the one thing that I love the records for is the artwork.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and I liked, just opening it, like the ones that had the all the liner notes sort of just right on the cardboard, and then some that had, I had the John Denver one that came with like this 4-panel fold-outs of John Denver, and just like a weird shit.
Yeah, we remember the poster you had in the office.
But there's absolutely nothing interesting about a digital release of an album. That's like you miss all that stuff, and I feel like maybe that was underestimated when the industry transitioned. And I know why they did, obviously, but just the feel and opening it up and the liner notes and the lyrics and the extras and all that stuff. People like that stuff, especially if you're a big fan of that band.
No, agreed. I just backed Murder by Death's new album on Kickstarter, and I backed the level that I get an actual physical CD.
Yeah.
And it's, because part of me, it is the ceremony of like how you have that like specific way you can open the plastic with using your fingernails and just one, like 2 moves. Because I agree, like I know that it is a sign of my age, but I like to have something tangible for a purchase. Not always. Like there's plenty of music out there where like I gotta buy a $1 song for my kids. I don't need like a hard copy of that. I just need it in the catalog.
Yeah. See, I like having fewer objects. I like the digital better.
But if it's a band that you are really into, I would buy the CD also if it's something that I really like, or the record.
But to your point, because you also feel like you're part of that community that surrounds that band.
Yeah.
So I looked into Precision Record Pressing. You had mentioned Memphis Record Pressing, Gotta Groove Records. They're all hiring. Multiple positions from floor to management to warehouse. And these positions are as basic as a vinyl sleever, but most of them need press operators. And these are basic skills. Anyone can essentially work one as long as they can pay attention to detail. And but they're hiring on all 3 shifts. So if you want to get into the industry, now is the time. The only one that's not actively hiring on its website is Third Man Pressing, and that's Jack White's outfit.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's just because, I would apply there.
Cool
so
factor.
I could work with Jack White.
Well, it's kind of interesting, too, as you mentioned.
Of course.
You mentioned the pressing and stuff. Like, you'd think those would be the jobs that maybe paid a little bit more. They're like $20 to $25 an hour. Actually, everything in distribution and shipping, they're paying like $10 to $15 more an hour.
Because you got to baby that?
Could you imagine?
Because they need to get it out the door, I'm assuming. I don't know.
I got to say that if you want to be in that industry, even being like a vinyl sleever, that's a hard sell.
Ooh,
that's a hard sell. In November, Adele was actually accused of breaking this Resurgent vinyl supply chain because she had more than 500,000 records for her new album 30 pressed, and it left all of these indie labels in limbo.
Oh, no.
And so that's like, so now I'm kind of curious to see what happens, because the boomers pass it out to the millennials who propped it back up, and it's this wholly resurgent industry to the point now where like the Adeles and huge acts want big numbers produced, and now the people that kind of propped up the industry can't get their music pressed as a result. So we'll see it fade a little bit. One record presser did say that this unprecedented demand that we've seen in vinyl was tangling the supply chain even before the pandemic and before Adele broke everything. But I don't know. I think
Adele ruins everything.
I think that once people that are buying vinyl start seeing that you can only buy popular artists in a Walmart, maybe it might not be so cool anymore.
Yeah.
All right.
That's when they start going to video stores.
Just kill time.
Yep.
We can do it. Let's retire and open a Blockbuster.
Sounds good. I'm in.
We can just use my catalog.
You two and Eric will be there.
Yeah. All right. Working on that this week. All right. Our next most popular story. Solar patio umbrellas recalled after bursting into flames. Sun Villa is recalling 400,000 solar LED market umbrellas sold only at Costco stores in the U.S. and another 33,000 that were sold in Canada. The problem is that lithium-ion batteries in the umbrella's solar panels, which power the LED lights, can overheat, burst into flames. The company has received reports of solar panels catching fire while charging and umbrellas catching fire while the solar panel puck overheated, caught fire. As always, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission said, stop using it and get it out of the sun. Costco is offering full refunds even if you don't return them. Anna, when are people going to stop buying junk?
Wow. There's a question.
No. Okay, so we cover a lot of recalls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
one of my impressions when I looked at this story, and I looked at the photos, and I looked at the page that sold them, and I'm like, who buys these? And then I see a number like 400,000. I'm like, oh, geez, a lot of people.
A lot of people, I guess. And the thing that scares me the most about this type of story is how the burden is now on the retailer to inform their customers.
Yeah, and luckily it's Costco that actually has a closer connection with the customers.
Right, exactly, because even in the best of circumstances, I think we know how that goes. Like, you know, for example, we just received an automotive recall notification. It's basically like a postcard that looks just like any other marketing direct send for a dealership or a car maker, and it's super easy to miss that. And I think we know based on the efficacy of the recalls for the Takata airbags, which was pretty abysmal for a long time. I think they're over 70% now fixed of what's been recalled, but that still leaves like a good quarter of recalled vehicles that have not been brought in for a fix. And this recall started in like 2013 or 2014 or something. That's not great. I think like the process is not really getting the job done.
Right.
People miss them, they move on. Costco's having to track people down to tell them that their umbrellas start on fire. It's just scary to think about how many of them won't be reached. And I think the media does have a responsibility to kind of help publicize these types of events, unfortunately, because they feel sensational. But the average person may not know about this recall. They're not checking the FDA and the NHTSA and other agency sites to find out that this stuff is occurring. Like, as an example of this, I was browsing recently the FDA recall roll for my job and discovered that a hand sanitizer geared towards children with Mickey Mouse on it was recalled for containing benzene, which is a known carcinogen.
Yep.
And I actually had this product in my home. Like, it was gifted to my child. But, you know, the recall campaigns, they put so much onus on the consumer to find out that information when their homes are filled with literally thousands of products. You know, how would we ever find out about that? We were gifted that product. You know what I mean? It's just stuff like that it just like, it's bothersome to me that these umbrellas are lighting on fire. And no one knows about it unless Costco can find them. Or they see it in the news.
I had almost the exact same situation because we cover the Consumer Product Safety Commission quite a bit. We do a lot of product development, product safety. And after the story came out, you know, I was just scrolling those kind of folding chairs. There's one that sits sort of like a hammock instead of just a normal chair. That was recalled. Those are sitting around our fireplace up north. And apparently they can break, and when they break, there's just a bunch of posts that'll jab into you. So, it was one of those where, like, I sent it out to everybody in the family, like, yo, next time you're giving it a sit, easy.
Beware.
But, I mean, to your point, Anna, there is so much on the consumer. And, Jeff, a lot of times, if it wasn't for our job, we wouldn't know. We know that. And I think of how you go to, like, a customer service station in any retailer, and you just see that wall of recalls, and you kind of give it a glance, like, okay, I don't have that wagon. I'm fine.
Well, at least you're looking at the wall of recalls. I have to admit, I've never even done that. So,
that's only when I'm at customer service. So that means I've already had a bad experience.
I think these types of situations could potentially become a bigger issue now that we're in this age of superinflation, because you are going to look at cost as a bigger determining factor for a lot of these types of purchases. If you see it as sort of a commodity type item, which, to be honest, if you're looking at this, and I think this is one of the biggest differentiations, say, between like my parents' generation and my kids' generation. If my dad would have looked at this and gone, wait a minute, you're going to put something that's going to put lights, that's going to light up these lights using the sun on a piece of fabric. No, I am not buying that. My generation goes, I don't know, maybe I could work. I don't know. You know, my kids would be like, that's awesome. I don't have to take a light out there. This is super great. So there's that sort of difference in terms of buying into a lot of this different technology, which is solar. You know, people are going to get excited about that. Don't have to worry about the inconvenience, if you will, of taking a light out there. It's already there. But balancing that against just practical knowledge and understanding and going, this doesn't look right. Like this does not sit well. I was surprised too. 400,000 of these things. You have to think these must have been popular with like resorts or something like that to get that type of scale. And again, to get that type of scale recalled and out of there so we aren't potentially starting things on fire, yeah, that's going to be a challenge. And like I said, I think it's going to be a bigger one when we see more of these lower cost items come onto the market and they start looking better and better because things are costing more now.
When we're not talking about like an impulse buy here. They retailed for $130 to $160.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Umbrellas are expensive.
Yeah. And I mean, I just think that just because something is being sold doesn't mean it's safe. And kind of that generational difference that you're talking about, Jeff, I think there's more of a trust in general in manufacturers that no matter what, if you can buy something, it means it's inherently safe.
If it's on the shelf.
Yeah. And that's just not true. Sometimes you have to trust your gut. Like for me, all I had to do was look at a photo of this thing and been like, not on my wooden porch. But like, I mean, talking about those chairs, you can see a difference in quality with anything that you buy. And sometimes it's incremental, and so that way you can take the lower cost option. Sometimes it's huge, and you're like, you know what, I think I'm going to wind up spending more because I'm going to wind up buying 5 of these instead of one high quality one. I also just wanted to point out that this was a made in China product. Outside of it looking like trash, it was kind of tacky. And it's also sold at Wayfair, Amazon, and Home Depot. So while it wasn't the specific one, it's like the identical product is at other outlets. So, you know, buyer beware.
I didn't think it looked that bad aesthetically, but just the whole concept should have set off some flags.
But I think people are accustomed to putting, like we have those like stake-in solar lights in our backyard. I think those are pretty commonly sold at this point, and people looking at that as a comparison item might see that as like, oh, this technology is established for this type of application, right?
Yeah, I understand that. Okay, don't trust anything with a external solar puck.
Solar puck, I don't know what a puck is, but
when you're absorbing that much heat and it's against the fabric, that's probably not great.
Yeah, these solar lights are like, they're on metal. They are not like attached to your home either. Just
well, and they're also
and you're not like sitting directly beneath
underneath
it.
them.
But like those solar lights, you're talking about like a tiny solar panel on the top, probably a very small element that, you know, lights the LED at night. Probably talking about way less power than,
for sure.
You know, this umbrella that has like, they had the LEDs running up and down the underneath the umbrella, so it could, you know.
I just think like, I guess my point is like, there are lots of applications for solar that are very safe and proven to be very safe.
True.
So I can see why people are like, oh, this is a thing now that we can do with solar.
Gotcha.
And then find out the hard way that it's not.
True, and then wonder what's on fire.
Why is my house on fire?
All right, our next most popular story, our actual most popular story this week, major aluminum manufacturer shuts down. The Century Aluminum plant in Hawesville, Kentucky is shutting down production due to rising energy costs. The company said the plant idling is the, quote, direct result of skyrocketing energy costs, specifically blaming the Russian war in Ukraine for the dramatic increase. The production stoppage will impact some 628 workers who will be laid off at the second largest employer in the area. The company will close the smelter for 9 to 12 months beginning today, until energy prices return to normal levels. The company only gave employees about 3 days' notice. According to the company, the plant is the largest U.S. smelter and the largest producer of high-purity aluminum in America, North America. The aluminum is used extensively in the defense industry as well as in aerospace applications. For example, it's used in F-16s, naval war vessels, Boeing 747s, and even the International Space Station. Jesse Gary, president and CEO of Century Aluminum, said power costs have more than tripled the historical average in a very short period. Still, he remains confident that the smelter could reopen once prices stabilize. However, he didn't say that they absolutely will return.
Yeah. I don't know, Jesse. I'm a little suspect here. Aluminum prices, first of all, have reached a historic level. Like, aluminum is more expensive now. It was in March anyway than it ever has been. So the price that they can get for their product is still very, very good. You also put in the fact that inventory levels are super low right now. This is a product that is in demand and catches a very good price. And you're shutting down because of energy prices that everybody is seeing. Now, looking at some factors, looking at a couple of different statistics and comparisons and all that, Kentucky, when you look at the price of commercial energy, okay, as well as residential, really, they're very similar. Kentucky is probably in the bottom third in terms of pricing.
Really?
So they are not one of the most expensive energy hubs in the U.S. They do have a lot of reliability issues. They're definitely in probably the bottom third in terms of reliability. So if you want to look at energy concerns there, it would seem it's less about cost and more about reliability. But this company also has 3 other plants. They've got another one in Kentucky. They've got one, I believe, in South Carolina, and they've got one in Iceland, of all places. So they're not shutting the business down. It feels like there's something going on here, whether it is the quantity that they're trying to produce, there's some other sort of type of issue. We write and we run a ton of articles talking about enterprise visibility, understanding what's going on within your enterprise, understanding things that are coming down the pike in terms of price increases, and making sure all of that data is visible to all the key players, not just locked into the purchasing people or whatever, the production people. It's everybody can see all of this stuff coming, and they can adjust accordingly. It really seems like something was dropped here. Either there's a bigger issue we don't know about, or they did not account for these price increases from an energy perspective further out in front, that they needed to make a real knee-jerk reaction all of a sudden here in order to potentially, I don't know, save the company. Because that's what it seems like you would have to do to lay 600 people off with less than a week's notice. It doesn't seem right.
And then blame a war overseas.
Well, and an issue that every single person, forget manufacturing, any business, any individual is dealing with higher energy costs right now. This is not exclusive to them or Kentucky or that industry.
No, I think that's a really good point, that a ball must have been dropped to not foresee this. And you're right, it does seem more like a knee-jerk reaction. Anna, what were your thoughts on what happened with Century Aluminum?
Yeah, I think Jeff made some really good points. I agree that this maybe doesn't pass the smell test. Temporary shutdowns, as they're positioning this based on energy prices, this is going to have huge ramifications on their workforce. I mean, it's hard to believe that the bulk of your workforce is going to just stick around for a year or until energy prices return to normal. Whatever that is. That's not going to be easy as just like flipping a switch when you decide that you are ready to go again. And we know, it's described as like the second biggest employer in the area. I think it's clear in the last 2 years we've learned a lot about how other industries are more effectively recruiting the type of workers that were typically drawn to manufacturing jobs, whether that's because pay is increasing in other areas like retail and warehouse. But that's just been the case. We've seen people flee manufacturing for that. Hawesville is right on the Indiana border. There's lots of small towns around here. There's a big Walmart that's advertising jobs for drivers at $87,000 a year.
Oh, geez.
There's competition anyway, and so I just don't think that these workers are going to wait around. One of the first things I thought of, and I agree with you, I think that there's other things going on here this doesn't make sense to just pull the pin like out of nowhere. There's never been a better time to increase the price of your product because everyone is doing that, right? We've talked in the past about these companies that either they're publicly traded or they're private shareholders or private equity or whatever is expecting a certain return. Maybe they're running a little bit too lean. Maybe they don't have the cash to infuse in the situation that they should. And it really is, hampering their ability to operate if that's the case. I don't know.
Here's the other thing, just kind of throwing this past you guys. If you've got 4 facilities, wouldn't it make sense to maybe consolidate and shut down the smaller ones as opposed to the bigger one too? I mean, I understand if you're looking to cut costs, maybe that big, but it just seems from an efficiency perspective, it would make more sense to run one bigger plant than 3 smaller ones. I don't know.
And how much further away is that other plant in Kentucky? They have to be feeling the same pinch.
You'd think. Right?
I should have looked that up as well. I wrote this up. So both of you guys agree that this story doesn't pass the smelt test.
I knew you were going to drop it. Well done, sir.
I'm sorry, but I'm not. No, talking about the skyrocketing aluminum prices, when we ran this, I was surprised. Well, I wasn't surprised, but it had a tremendous response on the website. It was a lot more people read this than we see in an average week, and a lot more people reached out directly saying that, hey, this is scary because we are already seeing orders canceled due to the cost of material, and anything with this industry, it's already very volatile, and this is just not a good sign. And Anna, to your point, one of the people that commented on the site, Jim, he said, once you lose your employees, they're probably gone for good.
Yep, Jim,
And
I agree.
Yeah, it is just wishful thinking to think that you can sit around for 9 to 12 months, and then, unless you are paying them full wages,
Right. It is just a tremendous risk.
Yeah.
Well, and right next door in Virginia, we talked last week about Lego coming in, or 2 weeks ago, Lego building a $3 billion facility too.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's I'm hoping to we can kind of continue to follow this story and see if anything else comes out. Like you said, maybe there's something a little bit worse under the hood going on.
Well, it'll be interesting if any other manufacturers in Kentucky sort of take this route as well or feel these pressures. Remember, Kentucky, that's coal country. So they are still one of the, as a percentage of energy that is dependent upon coal, Kentucky is in the top 5.
Yeah. So it looks like they have Century Aluminum in Hawesville, and then there was another one in Robards, Kentucky, which it doesn't seem like it's that far away.
Are you looking at a very small map?
It's like this far away.
It's only
like
it's only like
away.
Like a quarter inch away, guys. Look at it.
We have no idea how far away it is.
Yeah. No, it's my Google skills aren't quick enough. My arthritis. All right. Well, before we move on to, in case you missed it, stories that were not as popular on the website, but do still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward, we have a word from our sponsor.
Oil Eater's household cleaners, industrial cleaners, and industrial equipment are specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents and are used throughout the world. Our safe water-based formula dissolves grease and grime for almost any surface and leaves a fresh, non-chemical scent. Our ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used on shop floors, in parts washers, to clean equipment, and more. VOC compliant, Oil Eater will do an excellent job in a multitude of applications, safely and cost effectively, while reducing your chemical usage. Safe for the user, safe for the surfaces being cleaned, and safe for the environment. For more information, visit oileater.com or call 800-528-0334.
All right, and we're back. And we had a little bit more time to look that up. Anna, what'd you find?
It looks like the other plant is 55 miles away. So not a terrible jaunt, especially if you're coming from that direction anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe there's just a hard line in between those that is owned by two different, very different energy companies.
Yeah. Maybe there's a bridge troll in between there. We don't know.
That's got to be what's doing it.
Yeah.
It's got to be what's doing it. All right, well, let's move on to In Case You Missed It. The stories, like I said, that maybe weren't as popular on the websites, but still stand to make an impact on the industry going forward. And I'd like to start with you. What's your In Case You Missed It this week?
All right, so we ran a story earlier this week. The headline was, about 1 in 5 engineering degrees go to women. Despite various efforts to encourage more women to study STEM fields in college, the percentage of engineering bachelor's degrees earned by women in the United States hasn't really budged much in this century. Specifically, it has risen from 18% in 1998 to 22% in 2018, so 4 percentage points in 20 years. So the question is posed, why aren't women going into engineering? And if there's anything that can be done to help women to, studying engineering to kind of stay on that track. Because the Society of Women Engineers is reporting that over 32% of female STEM majors switch to another major while they're in college. Research shows that rate is typically higher than the rate at which men leave engineering. And of the women who do leave engineering as a profession, 30% cite that the workplace environment is the reason. A 2017 study of over 5,000 women who earned bachelor's degrees in engineering found that 10% never entered the field and 27% left the profession.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. Some really interesting statistics there. I bring this up because I think that when there's a lot of media coverage around evening the playing field, or these sort of ad hoc stories about this female exec here or there, we run the risk of assuming that these problems are solved or being solved, and that the efforts to level the playing field, whatever that means, are being effective. But as you can see here, there's a lot of nuance as to why these women are being left out of the field of engineering. And I think it's more than just, are we interviewing enough women for these roles type of issue. Clearly, there are problems both before that and after that in college and in the workforce that make women back away from this field. And as the article states, companies benefit from a gender diverse workforce. Mm-hmm. So there's benefit far beyond that for just these individuals. So I think that this approach has to start at the college level and also carry over from the HR department. Because it's more than just what is your hiring process, but clearly also what is your culture and is it tenable for a female workforce? And I think sometimes that's what's getting lost here, is that, they're looking at how do we hire more? But clearly the problem is not necessarily just the hiring part, but it's the retention part, and is your culture suitable? I don't know that people know how to quantify and characterize their culture effectively. That's a very difficult thing to identify and fix if there's a problem to fix. But it starts with talking to your employees and probably talking to these women, finding out what they need to be supported and to feel supported in this career path, because it's not working right now, what we're doing. I
completely agree. The feedback, I think, would be crucial. And I think it's such a lazy argument to just say women don't want to be engineers. That's what we hear all the time. But when you see how many women get long into the process from an education standpoint, and then even into the workforce, and then there's the abandonment, that's when you have to really take a look in the mirror and understand that is a culture issue.
Right.
It is, a person doesn't pursue an engineering degree and an engineering career and then decide to switch because all of a sudden, women just don't want to be engineers.
Or they want to be stay-at-home moms now, but, you're not looking at, is your workforce not supportive of somebody who is trying to, be a parent and also work? I mean, a lot of workforces are not, so.
Right. Jeff, what were your thoughts on this story?
Well, I think the most telling part is, I forget the number, but the statistic that says women are getting out of the engineering field because of the workplace environment. That's what's concerning. I think in the past, these articles they didn't get paid attention to as much because the statistic was more, they're not interested. Well, that's not the problem anymore. The problem is the workplace environment, which means, old white guys like me need to pay attention to this stuff because we're doing something wrong. And in an environment where we're looking for better workers, more qualified workers to try to get a competitive advantage and also just to be better, you're missing the boat. If you're doing something wrong within your company where women just don't feel comfortable being there, you got to fix that. You're missing out on a huge pool of talent. I've got one daughter looking to study biology, another one thinking about physics. Those aren't engineering specific, but they're definitely within that STEM field or that realm. It's concerning to hear things like that, because if they don't want to do that, great. I mean, my youngest daughter, she unfortunately inherited my math and science skills, so I don't think she's going there. But if they don't want to do that, it's because they don't want to do it, not because they feel uncomfortable in that environment. That's really eye-opening.
No, and we've seen a lot of companies make strides in terms of really taking a hard look and trying to change the culture, trying to change fringe benefits to make people, feel better in the workforce. I mean, sometimes it also comes to the individual workers, I don't know, just
being better,
just taking it easier. I don't know. And it is, I get it, because nobody wants to be told that what they're doing isn't right or what they're doing is, harming somebody else. But sometimes you need to look at just because it's the way you've always done it, it doesn't mean that it's the best way to do it going forward.
Exactly.
All right. In case you missed it this week, a new technology that turns the whole fish into food. So,
whoa.
Yeah. It's common in the meat industry to use the entire animal for food products. But that's not the case for fish, as more than half of the weight of the fish ends up as side streams that never reach our plates. And the reason I really wanted to do this story was because it made me think of this fishing charter that I did with my family, and we just caught so many big fish. And I'm like, we're eating fish for years! And they fillet it right on the boat. And it's just like fillet, rest of the fish goes back in the lake. And you're like, oh, I feel like I could have done something with that. All right, that's fine. You're wrapping it for me? Okay. So, food researchers at Chalmers University of Technology in Sweden have created a new sorting technology that gets 5 good cuts from fish, not just the fillet. The new method is already being used as at a herring processing plant in Sweden. When the fillet itself is removed from a fish, valuable side streams or other parts that are typically left behind can now be used as nuggets, mince, protein isolates, or omega-3 rich oils.
Mince. Yes.
Talk about things that need to be rebranded. What are you doing? I'm in the mince business. Oh, why do you smell so bad?
Fish mince, even worse.
Typically, these side streams are used in animal feed or just thrown away. And sometimes they wind up being mixed with more premium fillets. So at Sweden Pelagic, the company testing this new technology, the company estimates that it will produce 200 to 300 metric tons of mince from one of the new cuts. Just one. The company plans to increase that figure year over year, but if this is just a small case study pilot, I think there is a lot to be gained here in the fish processing industry. And I don't know, I like it when a new technology comes out that makes more out of what they're the raw material. And it was crazy to me how much of the fish was being either thrown away or used in animal feed.
Is this like the meat that's still on the fish after they do the fillets? Or they're not talking about like the head and the bones and stuff like that.
Sounds like the whole fish, Jeff.
No, I think
it's a fish version of hot dogs.
I know this is a real core issue for you, Anna, but
yeah.
I don't know.
Something you're very close to.
I hate waste. I mean, I think this is like cool that why waste all that stuff if you can use it?
Well, and profitably. Profitably. Like, I try to be really mindful as a carnivore, and when I buy chickens and beef and pork, I try and use the entire animal, all the way down to boiling the bones down for stock. You know, it's just, it started as a challenge with chickens, and now I just kind of, I don't know, I find it like pleasing to know that I've at least used everything.
Sure.
And this seems like there was a huge waste stream that now is going to be monetized by these companies, and possibly more fish fingers, which are delicious.
Well, it's always better to use your natural resources as wisely as possible. It's kind of alarming that there's that much left. I mean, when we go fishing, we're doing those fillets right down to the bone. So yeah, it's kind of amazing on a commercial level that this is happening.
Yeah. And I know it doesn't seem like, that groundbreaking of a story, but fish is a huge industry.
Hey. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any good fish bone jello recipes, or
I don't admittedly, same with Jeff. I don't use actually what we do is when we fish, typically for bluegills, we'll cut the fillets off and fry those for fish fry, and then we'll use the remaining gills to go and fish for crawfish.
Sure. Yeah.
And then when you see the bones that come out of that crawfish trap, everything's been used.
Yeah.
Everything's been used. Or if not, you just try and get them far enough away from the cottage so that way you're not attracting bears next to your kids.
I was going to say raccoons, but bears, wow.
Yeah, no, it's, we had, when I was gone last week, I came out of the cottage and everybody just kind of looked at me like, hey, what's going on? And you could tell that maybe they were scared. And they're like, so something was in the water, in the lake swimming, and all we could see was the head. We think it was probably maybe a beaver or a muskrat, but it was a big head. Maybe it was a bear. And I'm like, what are we talking? We've never seen a bear.
Is this a great outdoors story?
Well, we've never, they're like, maybe it was just a cub. I'm like, all right.
Do you know that 2/3 of the black bears in Wisconsin live in the upper third quadrant of the state?
Oh yeah, I believe.
So that's where they are.
Yeah. Well, and I've seen, not directly on the property, but I've seen bear cubs before. This one time I was driving, and this thing just came tumbling down a hill and rolled right into the middle of the road, and it was this little tiny ball of fur. I'm like, what is that? And it just popped up, and it was the most adorable little bear cub with the little ears. I'm like, oh, look at that. Oh, Mama's coming somewhere. Let's move.
Get out of here.
But no, so they're up there, but you don't see them a lot. You're loud, you're fine. Jeff, what is in case you missed it this week?
So I was thinking about my dad a lot this week, obviously. I think maybe just from that last story. Then when I saw this one, definitely thought of him because he loved fireworks. I mean, he was the one who was out in like the driveway with like the value pack from the grocery store or whatever, lighting all that stuff off, and my daughters would love it. So when I looked about this one, and the article was about fireworks prices are potentially skyrocketing this year. So fireworks have been on this sort of weird roller coaster ride in terms of pricing. 2020, the ones that you could buy and set off in your backyard legally, illegally, gray area there, they were in huge demand because there wasn't any like big municipal displays or anything like that. So people were doing this stuff on their own. Last year that lightened up a little bit. There was more of those bigger displays, so the domestic market or the backyard market kind of cooled a little bit. There wasn't as much of a demand. This year, there's sort of both. So the thought was, well, the prices should go down because there's going to be more people going to see the municipal displays, maybe fewer people doing stuff in the backyard. Well, with inflation, like it's hit fireworks really hard. So if you're into these fireworks displays, or these fireworks and doing the stuff in your backyard or on your driveway or whatever, the prices are expected to be up like 12% this year.
Oh my goodness.
So some of those things, the other thing to be careful of if you are into this, you're not only going to pay a little bit more, but the number of fireworks-related injuries could also increase, so please be careful. If you are buying some of the lower-priced fireworks, kind of like the story we had about the umbrellas catching fire, if you're buying a lower-cost option, please be careful. Please be safe.
Oh, man.
I feel like the El Diablo fireworks that I buy at the local pantry up north are perfectly
They're perfectly
safe.
fine. No worries there.
You know, they give you 2 tubes, so if the first one stands on a slant, you always know, just use the other one.
Well, my dad it would be like, what are you doing? Because it wouldn't light. Like the fuse would burn down like half the way and be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And he'd be the one,
I know, every
get
time.
up there and make sure it lit.
No, I love lighting off fireworks off of our pier, even if only sometimes just for myself. We had a couple years ago where we were lighting them off, and of course, like we're out, it's late, I'm wearing sandals, and my brothers and I are helping. I go to light the firework, I drop it into the chamber, and I go to turn, and my sandal gets stuck. I fall. And of course, the crushing weight of me on the pier shakes it, destabilizes the firework, and it goes AWOL. And of all people that are out there, like the grandparents and my brothers and everything, my niece, my goddaughter, comes up and she passes me. And she goes right into my brother's face who was out there, and he's just like, you were out there, man. You should have been there for him. And I was just like, she loves me.
Nice.
Yeah. I was just like, hey, Brian, you hurt her. He's like, you should have been there for me. He's like, you're wearing sandals. I'm like, yeah, but this is on you. This is on you. But no, definitely be careful. Because no matter how careful you are, I always feel like I take at least one spark to the eye.
Oh yeah, there's always one close call.
That's why I just get a box of snakes.
I do the snakes. The first time Anna's kids see real fireworks, they'll be like just mesmerized.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute.
Wait, you told us it was only snakes this whole time.
I feel like every year too, people have more and more licenses to like what's the 4th adjacent. Like I've started, we had fireworks as early as like last Friday in the neighborhood.
Oh, really?
Off, and you're just like, come on.
Yeah, it's not time, guys.
What's that like an acceptable window? I'll take like the day before, the day of, and the day after. Everything outside of that is just maybe 2 days.
Weekend after is totally fair game. This year, 4th of July is on a Monday. You're going to get fireworks before. You're going to get them after.
No,
Nothing you can do about that.
I have to prepare myself.
Yeah.
Well, one of those things you're getting old when it's like midnight and the fireworks are going off and you're like, come on.
I know.
Really?
Like,
now?
The fireworks don't bother me. It's when someone lights a firework, because we're near a park, and so they'll light off fireworks in there. As the firework goes off, and then there's a beat, and then every dog in the neighborhood loses its mind. And you know, it's hot out, so every window is open, and it's just like, my neighbor's dogs in particular, I'm like, you know it's coming, man. Get some muffs on them. I don't know. All right. Well, let's move to our final thoughts before we get out of here. Anna, what's your final thought this week?
I know this is going to air after the 4th of July, but our family's heading up we rented a cabin up north for the week, and I'm very excited. I got we got our kids their own inner tubes that are like shaped like fruit. And so I think that means means that they won't fight because they each have their own.
Are they all the same fruit?
No, they're different fruits.
Oh, no. I want the banana.
But they agreed in advance who would have watermelon, who would have lemon, and then who would have the kiwi. But
lemon?
yeah.
Somebody's going to be mad about the kiwi.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. There's already been some talk about which ones can be covered in sand and which ones cannot. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the trip, and hopefully by the time I see you guys next, I will not have been traumatized by the inner tube fighting. But
very good. My final thought this week is that it is my wife's birthday tomorrow, and I just wanted to say happy birthday. You know, she does a lot for me and the family. She's a big supporter of the podcast. Is she watching live?
Is she?
She's not watching live. But just wanted to say that I love you and thanks for everything. Happy birthday. Jeff?
Happy birthday, Carrie. We love you for putting up with David.
It is trying. No. I don't make it easy.
Yes, we are heading out of town as well. Looking forward. No, you don't. No, you don't.
I'm not going to leave that there.
With the yes. Yes. No.
Yeah, we're heading out of town as well. I think this whole week has sort of been like, in this office, it's kind of like fourth graders right before recess, trying to focus on math or something.
Yeah.
So it'll be good to get out of here for a while. Transitioning to trivia from last week, had kind of some interesting development here. Typically, when I look at these engagement numbers, when we put out the trivia, and the question for this one was which food company had the highest level of engagement. The options were Kellogg, Tyson, Pepsi, Hershey, Mondelez, and JBS. I look at the non-vertical sites. So I just look at manufacturing.com, or excuse me, manufacturing.net, IN.com, MBT Mag, Impo, that stuff. And when I did that, Kellogg barely was ahead of Pepsi. Okay, so Kellogg would have been the right answer, but I got a lot of responses from our readers, and I'm not just like pandering here. Like, we legitimately learn a lot from our readers when they respond to us and give us feedback. So with so many answers coming in for Tyson, it kind of made me wonder a little bit. So I went to foodmanufacturing.com, and on that site, Tyson, it wasn't even close.
Oh, really?
All the stuff we ran on Tyson, it was overwhelming that was the company that had the highest level of engagement. So anybody who wrote in Tyson, they're getting a T-shirt.
Nice.
There was a ton of them. Sorry for not mentioning everybody, but yeah, we'll definitely get those out there. So we did a little bit differently this time. So both would have worked out, but Tyson definitely worked.
I definitely thought it was Tyson.
Yeah, it was huge. Like, and I figure with that being the food processing sort of focal point of our portfolio, if you will, it kind of made sense to recognize that.
Oh, was Kellogg so huge because of the strike?
The strike stuff. Yeah, absolutely. And actually, Pepsi was huge as well. That one had more than I realized too.
Okay.
So again, I said I was thinking about my dad a lot, so we're gonna go old school with the trivia. We're gonna go back to the 1988 E.R. Wagner safety card trivia.
Yes.
I like it.
And with the whole focus, we're excited with the 4th coming up. I thought we'd do sort of a, holiday themed, if you will, trivia question. All right. What are the 3 things you should do to put out a campfire? All right. So if you're sitting around the campfire, roasting some marshmallows, making some s'mores, drinking some beverages, before you go to bed, there's 3 things you should do to make sure that campfire is out and that you're safe.
Really?
What are the 3 things?
There's a third?
Kick it.
Let me know, Jeff@IEN.com. Kick it?
Kick it. Dig a trench
Just
around
kick it. Just put a bird on it.
Kick that
Put a
fire's
rooster on it.
ass.
Rooster on it. Just
Put a
jab it.
rooster.
All right. Well, before we get out of here this week and everyone goes to enjoy their weekends, long weekends, or entire weeks off, just a reminder that we're off next week. Also, a reminder that please send us any questions that you have or story ideas that you would like us to discuss on the podcast. Not next Tuesday, the following Tuesday, because we'll record it live on Monday, which is the 11th, and it'll go live it'll go out in our newsletters on the 12th.
Can they ask us anything?
They can ask us anything.
Anything?
We don't have to answer everything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But no, get weird with it. All right. Well, before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at IN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily and weekly newsletters. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. All right, for Jeff Ranke and Anna Wells, I'm David Manti. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast. We'll